Good afternoon, Bermuda, and welcome to the members of the media. Today, I am joined by the Minister of Health, who will be providing an update to the public on the latest from her ministry. Following that, I will update on matters related to the economy, tourism, and education. First, we'll start with the Minister of Health. Minister?
Thank you, Premier. Good afternoon, everyone. Today, there were 551 test results received by the Ministry of Health, and one was positive for COVID-19. This most recent case is classified as imported, having arrived on the British Airways Flight 2233 on the 4th of October 2020. Case isolation and contact tracing has begun. Bermuda now has 185 total confirmed positive cases, and their status is as follows. 172 have recovered, and there are 4 active cases who are all under public health monitoring. None are hospitalized or in critical care, and the total deceased remains at 9. The average age of all of our confirmed positive cases is 56, and the age range from our positive cases is 9 to 101 years. Overall, 50% of the cases are black, 42% are white, and 8% are other or unknown. The source of all local cases is as follows. 74 are imported, 90 are local transmission with a known contact, 21 are local transmission with an unknown contact, and none are under investigation. Bermuda's country status remains at sporadic cases, and the 7-day average of our real productive number is less than 1. Following a press release issued last week by the Ministry of Health, I would like to remind the public that commencing tomorrow, the seasonal influenza or flu vaccine will become available for priority groups through their doctor or the Flu Express at a cost of $15 per shot, and this is for both adults and children. Persons over the age of 65 will receive their seasonal flu shot free of charge. The flu vaccine is safe and highly effective method of preventing most cases of the flu. Side effects are rare and usually mild. The Department of Health's Flu Express will allow people to drive to the designated site and receive the flu vaccine while waiting in their car without having to get out. This will make it easier for some people to access the vaccine, reduce crowds, and maintain physical distancing. The October Flu Express days and locations are as follows. Under the Rubber Tree tomorrow on Middle Road in Warwick between 10 a.m. and 2 o'clock p.m. In Hamilton at the Health Center's car park on 67 Victoria Street on Saturday, the 17th of October, again from the hours of 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. At Pennell's Wharf, St. George's on Wednesday, the 21st of October, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., and at the Somerset Cricket Club Field on Wednesday, the 28th of October, from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. Priority persons who should attend the Flu Express are the following: healthcare workers, caregivers, and essential service workers, persons over the age of 65 and over, any person with a chronic medical condition who is at risk of complications from the flu, such as having diabetes, asthmatics, or those with heart disease, as well as all children. Flu injections will only be offered at the Flu Express on the specified days to individuals in good health without active infections. You will not be given a flu shot if, 1, you are allergic to eggs, chicken products, or any component of the vaccine, or 2, you have had a reaction to the flu shot before, 3, you are unwell or have a fever, 4, you have had a seizure within the last year, or finally, if you are currently having COVID-19 or have been quarantined due to COVID-19. Please dress comfortably to allow the nurse easy access to the injection site in the upper arm. During the month of November, the flu vaccine will be available at the Hamilton Health Center in the outdoor setting using a pop-up tent between the hours of 2 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. The general benefits of the flu vaccination are as follows: decreased chance of contracting influenza, a decreased chance of contracting influenza in pregnancy and increased protection for the newborn infants, increased protection against influenza during travel abroad, increase quality of life for our community, especially our seniors, infants, and children, and persons at risk from having complications from the flu. Any decreased absenteeism from work or school due to influenza. In protecting yourself against influenza, you are also protecting your family, your household, your workplace, and ultimately your community. Having an annual flu injection provides a high level of immunity to the anticipated circulating strains of flu virus. Individuals who have had flu before or been immunized previously may only have partial immunity to this season's flu. The currently available flu vaccine has been designed to provide protection against the most likely circulating strains of influenza virus for the 2020-21 flu season. And this vaccine does contain 4 strains. It is an inactivated vaccine, and it contains killed viruses and therefore cannot cause the flu. Influenza vaccine is recommended for all persons over the age of 6 months. Children aged 6 months to 9 years require 2 shots given 4 weeks apart if they are being vaccinated for the first time against influenza. Individuals under the physician's care for chronic medical condition and children under the age of 3 are asked to obtain a prescription for the flu immunizations from their private physician. For the upcoming flu season, flu vaccinations will be particularly important to reduce the flu because it can help to reduce the overall impact of respiratory illnesses on the population and thus lessen the resulting burden on the healthcare system during the COVID-19 pandemic. Influenza and COVID-19 are both contagious respiratory illnesses, but they are caused by different viruses. COVID-19 is caused by infection with a new coronavirus called SARS-CoV-2, and the flu is caused by infection with influenza viruses. Because some of the symptoms of flu and COVID-19 are similar, it may be hard to tell the difference between them based on symptoms alone, and testing may be needed to help confirm a diagnosis. Flu and COVID-19 share many characteristics, but there are some key differences between the two. COVID-19 seems to spread more easily than flu and causes more serious illness in some people. It can take also longer for people to show symptoms, and people can be contagious for longer. Another important difference is there is a vaccine to protect against the flu, and there's currently no vaccine to protect against COVID-19. It is important to note that getting the flu vaccine will not protect against COVID-19, and also it is possible to have the flu and COVID-19 at the same time. The chance of contracting the flu, COVID-19, and other upper respiratory infections can be reduced by frequent hand washing, by covering coughs and sneezes, disposing of soiled tissues, and avoiding crowded places and maintaining physical distance. Stay safe, Bermuda, and remember, as I've said before, I wear a mask to protect you, and you wear a mask to protect me. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister of Health. And I would like to echo your sentiments on the importance of residents getting flu shots to protect against this year's seasonal flu. This year, as you said, it is vital that as many persons as possible avail themselves of the flu shot. I just want to speak to one thing about the issue of letting our guard down, as we have certainly seen a relaxation in attitudes towards the protections and actions which are necessary to keep us as a country safe, and most importantly, to keep our economy healthy. Bermudians do not need to be reminded, as we see it on the news every day, increasing cases in other countries, second waves, the strict measures that impact the economy for countries in the Caribbean, but also for countries in Europe. The virus is still a threat. And though you are as tired of hearing about it as I am talking about it, it does not mean that it is not going away. We must continue to remain and to be vigilant. Remember, in all likelihood, this virus started from one person who was infected, and an entire world is now living through this pandemic. So it really only takes one person to start an outbreak here in Bermuda. And that is the reason why the government will continue to press the message of enforcement. That is the reason why we will continue to remain vigilant. And that is the reason why we will continue to encourage others in the community to remain vigilant, as the risk to our economy and our way of life is too great. As I speak about the economy, I would like to share a short story with those who follow U.S. politics would know well. In 1992, former U.S. President Bill Clinton was taking on incumbent President George Herbert Walker Bush. Bill Clinton's strategist James Carville was trying to find a quick and effective way to explain to Clinton's team the messages that they needed to focus on and hammer home to the American people. The message that resonated and which caused Bill Clinton to win that election was a simple one. It's the economy, stupid. In other words, no matter what else was going on, no matter what other grand plans they had, nothing else mattered as much as fixing the economy. Now, nearly 30 years later, there cannot be a government on the planet who does not have some concern about the performance of its economy and is telling itself it's the economy. As Bermuda earns most of its foreign exchange by providing services to others, either in international business or tourism, we are certainly not immune to the global shocks that are reverberating around our world, more so given the fact that we have a significant tourism economy. And so, with the mantra, it's the economy, ringing in the cabinet's ears, we have set out in our first meeting today to restore our economy and to regain the enviable positions we had in 2019. I say enviable because there are some facts which are important to share. The last time GDP was higher than 2019 was in 2013. There were more Bermudians working by December 2019 than at any time since 2014. More tourists came to Bermuda in 2019 than at any time in the last 10 years. And I know there can be a lot of information or misinformation during election periods. But now that those times are behind us, I wanted to share that objective data that, while previously reported, sometimes gets lost in the cut and thrust and back and forth of politics. However, with that said, October 2020 is not 2019. And while it may be good to look backwards, our economy is certainly challenged today. The government is working with employers and is receiving regular notifications of redundancies or restructurings, which are necessary due to the business conditions caused by the pandemic. We get the numbers, and we all hear them, but it's important for us to remember that each of those numbers represents a family, someone whose career may be cut short, a provider for a senior or a young person who is now feeling very uncertain about the future. I do not want anyone watching or listening to me now to think that the government is blind or deaf to the challenges being faced by families and the incredible stress that the economic uncertainty causes. I had a phone call from a constituent yesterday who had been informed that their position at their job that they've been working at for a very long time has been made redundant and seeking help and answers. That is why it formed a significant part of our cabinet meeting today, the first cabinet meeting of the new government. I would like to let members of the public know that next week, Monday, the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Labor will hold a joint press conference and will update the public on the work being done to support those that are being displaced from work, and also to speak about the measures being put in place to jumpstart and to continue to work to stimulate our economy. It is important, and that is the number one focus of the government. That is why we have to focus on what is working and develop as much as we can with our tourism economy. Last week, I proudly highlighted 3 international sporting events that Bermuda will host in October: Gold Cup sailing, World Tens Rugby, and PGA Championship Golf. If these events were happening in any given July, we would be proud and happy. The fact that we're hosting these events in October during a pandemic, when getting flights here is not easy, is clear testament to the work of which we have done thus far. Our tourism industry will be boosted not only by the participants who have and will fly in to compete, but since our protocols have allowed us to successfully manage COVID-19's impact, we are also able to use this opportunity to promote Bermuda as a safe jurisdiction. And just one thing, speaking about the golf tournament, because there were two golf tournaments supposed to be happening at the same time, and the other golf tournament was canceled, that means that Bermuda is actually getting double the coverage on the Gulf Network than we would have gotten previously. And that is an example of the dividends that Bermuda is earning for being a safe jurisdiction, therefore allowing us to hold these events, whereas other countries are unable to do so because they do not have the protections and strict controls that we do. So in addition to hosting organizers and sponsors from 3 separate tournaments, we will also welcome the competitors' families, support teams, spectators, and fans. At present, the only airlines who have not resumed their flights to Bermuda since the pandemic are WestJet and United Airlines. The others are flying at reduced capacity, partially due to COVID-19. Delta and JetBlue do not sell their middle seats, and partly due to customer demand, which is why we must constantly tell the world that we are open for business. Clearly, there are also other challenges of which the government is working on, specifically the issue with Canada and the Canadian flights, which were cut back because of the restrictions that are put in place for visitors to Canada, which is an issue that we continue to work on. And additionally, there is the other issue which has recently occurred with the New York quarantine in the state of New York, where there is continued work and effort there. If we do not resolve that issue, of course, it can lead to a continued reduction of flights. And what we want to do is our best to make sure that we avoid that. The more people demanding to fly to Bermuda, the more flight capacity we will have. And that will cause us to continue to support our tourism industry during the winter. As airlines struggle to restore their flights and fly profitable routes, Bermuda's hospitality industry will gradually be greater served, and we are certainly seeing some level of improvement. As I spoke to last week, the fact that British Airways has increased their flights in the winter and are going to putting on 5 flights to Bermuda versus the regular 3 is a testament to where you have the agreements of having no quarantine because you are a safe jurisdiction, you can see an increase in flights and persons that are traveling. So that is the reason why we're going to continue to push these aspects with certainly the state of New York, but also continuing to work to see if there is some form of corridor that can be formed with Canada. Further to those efforts to show and tell the people that Bermuda is still another world, I certainly want to provide an update on our Work from Bermuda initiative. I'm pleased to report that since the initiative was launched on the 1st of August, we have received 452 separate applications, and out of the 452 applications, 354 of them were approved. We look forward to those persons living and working in Bermuda while they reside here and work remotely. In addition to hosting international sporting events, rising tourist arrivals, and airlines increasing their capacity, and our Work from Home initiative, we certainly cannot underestimate what the change from London Gatwick to London Heathrow will mean for our tourism industry next year. And although the change does not start until March, the buzz that it is already causing in the business and leisure travel sectors makes us optimistic for the 2021 tourism season. Publications as diverse as Forbes, Loop News in the Caribbean, and TripAdvisor have carried the exciting news. Tourism and hospitality's future is certainly better served, and Bermuda will always judge ourselves by how our competitors are doing. And because of the excellent work of the Ministry of Health team and others, we are certainly in a better place. I wish to very briefly share data about another pillar of our economy, that of international business. According to a recently released report from the Association of Bermuda Insurers and Reinsurers, 2019 represented the highest number of Bermudians working in the industry since 2016. I understand that education is more than about finding a good job, but in order to take advantage of the opportunities in international business that do pay high salaries, we must ensure that our children are educated and prepared to be global citizens. It is because of our commitment to Bermuda students that I cannot wait to see the work that the Ministry of Education is about to undertake. Further to our intentions and efforts to overhaul the delivery of public education to Bermuda students, phasing out middle schools and introducing senior schools at the secondary level, the ministry reached out to educators and members of the community seeking participants to serve on school redesign teams. These teams will participate in the design, prototype, and testing of the new technology and practices that will empower students. Since the teams will be comprised of professional educators, community mentors, parents, employees, and others, the process will ensure that the education system that we are consulting on produces well-rounded graduates who can confidently pursue whichever path they choose, whether that be trades, tertiary education, or entrepreneurship. Accordingly, I recommend that parents and others sign up to be a part of this process for change. And if you wish to join the transition which is taking place inside of education in Bermuda, I urge you to visit the website learningfirstbda.com. Again, that is learningfirstbda.com. On that website, you'll be able to sign up, register your interests, submit an expression of interest form to participate on the school redesign teams, and you'll be able to get information on the exciting work that is taking place in regards to the redesign of our public education system. As the Minister of Education said during the election campaign, it is our expectation to work to introduce the first signature schools during the next school year. But we want to ensure that the community is going along with us for the journey and is buying in. So please visit learningfirstbda.com so that you can join in with this effort. So as I close, it is no question that during this fall, we are in the midst of a very turbulent period, which is towards the end of a very turbulent year. And just as we have worked together as a country to get through the challenges of which we faced so far in 2020, that will be ever more important over the next few months. It is, without question, going to get more bumpy. And as I have acknowledged previously, there are going to be fears and doubts. But as we live on this island together, let us be in no doubt whatsoever that working together, we will be able to overcome these challenges. The government is laser focused on the work which is necessary to improve this economy, and we will stop at nothing to make sure that what we do is get our people back to work so that we can have a standard of living in after this pandemic that actually makes sure that the people of this country can afford to live here and continue to live here in comfort. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions that members of the media may have.
Dawn? Dawn?
Good evening, Don Burgess, Bermuda Broadcasting. Health Minister, something seemed a little wrong with the case announced last week. How did a person arrive on September 30th, but the government only announced the positive on October 7th? Did this person miss their day 4 screening? What happened in this case?
With respect to that individual that you're referring to, they became symptomatic and as a result did have a test. You'll recall that persons that are resident of Bermuda that arrive without a pre-test are in quarantine in any event. So the individual in question was in quarantine, became symptomatic, and then took a test and subsequently tested positive. And they are now in isolation, and the contact tracing has begun.
Similar to today's case, because they've been here for more than, or they arrived more than a week ago?
That's correct. That's correct. They arrived on the 4th of October. Again, if you have no pretest and you are a local resident of Bermuda, then you are not required to have a pretest, but you do go into quarantine, and they did subsequently test positive. And as I indicated, they have been isolated, and the contact tracing has begun in that individual case as well.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Premier, you announced the numbers for the Bermuda residency certificate. How many of those 354 people have moved to the island already?
I would love to be able to give you those numbers, Don. I can't give those numbers off the top of my head. However, I did pose that exact question towards the Minister of Labor today during a meeting that I'm not allowed to talk about. But I will be able to provide that answer later at some point in time in the future.
Okay, thank you. Earlier this year, you mentioned that companies might be moving groups of people to work from Bermuda, or to work from Bermuda because it is a safe jurisdiction from COVID. Has that happened? And if so, how many companies have done this?
The answer to the first question is yes, it has happened. What specifically insofar as how many companies, that information I don't have off the top of my head. That's part of the reconciling of the work from Bermuda work of which we're looking to do, so we can provide a better and clearer picture of that. In addition, we know that there have been relocations of international business persons who are working for Bermuda-based companies or companies that have Bermuda branches who have relocated here during the time. So we've seen it's very strange, and I say strange that you will see persons who are working in the real estate industry will say that they haven't seen the rental market this hot in a very long time. So while we're having challenges in certain parts of our economy, and we are certainly seeing challenges with layoffs which have been announced recently, both in international business and also domestically, we're also seeing other areas in strength. And where there is certainly a significant amount of turnover or activity inside the rental market, which is due to not only the work from Bermuda, but also persons who are relocating, taking advantage of global work permits, et cetera, from the Department of Immigration, and then relocating certain staff here. The Business Development Unit, which will be soon merged with the Economic Development Department, is certainly working as part of their concierge service to assist companies who are looking to relocate, and are working with a number of companies.
Thank you. And my last question tonight is for the health minister. A recent study was released this last week, shows that the virus lives a lot longer on surfaces than previously thought, and particularly at certain temperatures. Has the government factored this in as the temperatures cool off in Bermuda, and what about frozen foods?
It's really important, and that's a very good question, Don. Thank you. It's important to encourage and remind persons that it is important to adhere to the guidance that's been distributed by the Department of Health, especially as it relates to disinfecting surfaces and cleanliness, particularly high frequently used surfaces such as light switches, doorknobs, and so forth, bathroom facilities, and the like. So there's protocols that are in place with respect to disinfecting. Businesses are required to disinfect and properly sanitize their place of employment at the beginning of the day and frequently throughout the day. So we're encouraging individuals to adhere to the guidance that's been issued as it relates to disinfecting and sanitation.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Owen Johnson Barnes with the Royal Gazette. Ms. Wilson, obviously with the flu season starting, this year we have a slightly different set of circumstances because there are already so many precautions in place for COVID. Does the Ministry of Health think this is going to help prevent the spread of influenza in Bermuda?
We think that there'll be two things that will help prevent the spread of influenza in Bermuda. First and foremost is the strong suggestion that persons get an influenza shot for the reasons that I've spoken about. And secondly, what we've noticed in some of the other countries in the Southern Hemisphere is that there has been a reduction in the flu because of persons being accustomed to wearing masks and physically distancing, washing their hands, proper hand hygiene, and the like. So those two factors combined, we think, will have great effect on the reduction of influenza here in Bermuda.
Thank you. Mr. Premier. Government earlier this year announced policies which would allow people to remain laid off for an extra few months, that instead of going immediately to redundancy. Now, of course, that period is, for a lot of people, ending this month. Is government prepared for a surge of people becoming made redundant?
I don't think that the government can ever be prepared. But what is important to recognize is that we are in an incredibly difficult economy. And just as though we're seeing the challenges which are being faced by countries around the world in this, where you're dealing with severe dislocation in the labor market, Bermuda will be no different. Our objective is to make sure that Bermuda fares better than our peers. It is going to be tough, but our job is to make sure that we do a better job than other countries. And we've done a better job with COVID thus far. It is going to be difficult, but that's the reason why we've set aside money to make sure that we can support persons. We've implemented the supplementary unemployment benefit for persons who may not be eligible to financial assistance. That's the reason why the Minister of Labor has outlined his retraining and rehiring programs, which are necessary and important for persons who are let go. And that's the reason why it is vital that we stimulate the economy to make sure that there are more persons living and working in Bermuda so that we can recover more quickly than other jurisdictions. So the premise of your question is the government prepared? The government has taken the precautions which are necessary, but as I said during my address, I'm not trying to sugarcoat anything. It is going to be an incredibly difficult period, but we are ready to assist in the best ways in which we can, and that means by providing support to those persons who need it, making sure that those persons who are looking to get back to work have the opportunity to do so, and moving forward various capital projects in the government to stimulate the economy, to provide employment for those who may be able to use that employment.
Now, for those who are currently laid off and could potentially be made redundant in the next few weeks, is there any sort of requirement for their employers to give them a heads up, to let them know what's going to happen so they can make advanced plans? Or are you concerned that people will find out on November 1st that they're suddenly unemployed?
That I don't know the specifics on those labor questions, but what I would encourage you to do is to save those questions for the Minister of Labor, who, as I said, will be giving a joint press conference with the Minister of Finance next week, Monday, and he'll be happy to certainly answer those questions. He's an expert in labor law. I don't have that labor law on the top of my head, so I'm sorry I can't give that to you right now, Owen.
No problem at all. Now, you mentioned earlier the flights to New York and the challenge with the New York quarantine. Is there any sort of metrics you can give us about how that quarantine policy has affected the island so far?
I don't have the metrics off the top of my head, but what I do know, I don't want to say that people are ignoring the quarantine. That's not the report I want to give. But what I can say is it is certainly a challenge, and I can just look at what happened when Air Canada had put on their initial flights and had wanted to fly, I think, 2 to 3 times a week, and then had to reduce it because it was only one-way traffic. And this will be the same instance where persons, well, not necessarily, it's the same thing where people are traveling from New York to Bermuda. They don't have to quarantine when they're here, but then when they go back, they have to quarantine, which can discourage travel. So it's something that we continue to work through. I don't have those metrics. I can try to make sure that the Department of, I would say, Tourism or Immigration, who keeps the arrival statistics, can put those together specifically. And I see my team taking notes to the back to try to get the answers for that question. But it's something that we're working through. The challenge is that the U.S. has very few countries on their level 1 list. It is my belief that Bermuda belongs there, given the work of which we've done. But as I said, this is the New York state government who has specifically applied this. And as I said, we're working in multiple levels, both with the UK government's representatives over there, while also having connections with various persons in state government to try to resolve this issue.
Okay, now a very different subject matter. Obviously, recently, Mr. Commission's appointment and then resignation has been in the headlines. In his letter of resignation, he mentions making misleading comments. Can you provide the public with any details as to what those misleading comments was?
I will not be speaking any further on that incident.
I guess this would be the follow-up question. Can you say what circumstances changed between Thursday and Saturday that led to the decision to resign?
Let's put it this way. The circumstances changed significantly enough for me to ask for the resignation, and I will not be commenting further on that.
Thank you very much.
Good evening.
Hi, Trevor.
Premier, I'm not sure if you're aware that ATM workers at a local bank, a team of these guys will be made redundant. More individuals are being redundant, more individuals losing jobs. Is your administration, how is your administration going to handle all these high members of public unemployed, can you sustain as a government this high level of unemployment?
As a community, we will have no choice in order to do so. And I was very clear in my comments, Trevor. One of the persons who you're talking about is a very good friend of mine, and that was the conversation I was speaking about that I had. So I understand and recognize, and as I say, families close to us are affected. Though we may sit in positions of leadership, we're also very close and related to the community. So these things happen and they affect us personally. So I certainly understand and recognize it. But as a country, we'll have no choice. We must continue to push through it. So there were some questions that will be asked. I'm certain that the Minister of Labor and the Minister of Finance are on top of the situation, working through it. There are certainly these challenges of which we have, but that's the reason why it's vitally important for us to go back to Parliament in November, make sure that we pass a suite of legislation which is necessary to go ahead and to diversify our economy, to attract more job creators to our economy, and to take advantage of the excellent management of the pandemic of which we've had thus far. We have a very narrow window in which to do it, and that is why we have to act. But yes, there are going to be persons who have a severe amount of uncertainty due to employment of which they've held for a long time no longer being available. And that is a challenge which we have to work through. We have money that's set aside, and we are going to continue to support those persons, and we're going to continue to ensure that Bermudians have preference in their country in order to work.
Is your finance minister and his team prepared to speak, or how is the communication with the bankers downtown? Because there is a lot of locals that are stressed with mortgage issues at present. What is the consultation with the administration, your administration, and the banks?
Well, I can't speak to that directly because the Minister of Finance handles banks, and I know the Minister of Finance meets with the Bermuda Bankers Association. But as I stated, the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Labor will be having a joint press conference next week, Monday. So you're certainly welcome to present those questions to the Minister of Finance so he can answer those directly.
Cheers. Earlier you spoke of the redesigned public education learning first.
BDA.com.
Yeah. I have the actual advertising email that went out, and it's asking for, we are looking for enthusiastic and committed educators and community members to be a part of this talented school redesign team, responsible for supporting the development of unique Bermuda-based solutions for the Bermuda public school system. We have already had when your administration came in, the OBA previous administration had done a review of the education system, some things you tweaked, and now it seems that the can is being kicked down the road. What exactly will those who are answering this advert be called on to do?
Here's what I'll say, Trevor. Nothing could be further from the truth that the can is being kicked down the road. What I have said and indicated is that the team that has been working with the Board of Education and others have come up with a design for our education system going forward. And what is essential is to make sure that we have community buy-in. That is the reason why we're getting the community involved. This government does not believe in saying this is what we're going to say and we're just going to push it out. We have had an excellent record of consultation in our time in office, and this is no different. There is a blueprint and there is an outline, and that is going to be enhanced by the team there. So we have to engage in an effort of consultation, and that's what these teams are going to be designing. But just so you're clear, Trevor, there have been a lot of teams that have been working on this already with stakeholders. We're broadening the consultation because now we're moving towards getting closer and ready to implementation. So I thank you for asking the question. I don't want people to think that we are starting again from scratch. That is not the case. And I'm certain that the Minister of Education will be happy to answer any specific follow-up questions that you have on that, or the Commissioner of Education. And I know that he will be at a press conference shortly as well to address those issues.
Okay. Cheers. Thank you much.
That's it.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you for the members of the media. Thank you for you at home for your attention. As I said, next week, Monday, the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Labor will be hosting a joint press conference to update on matters related to employment and the economy. And the Minister of Health and I will be back here with you again next week, Tuesday evening. So for everyone in Bermuda, thank you for listening and good night, Bermuda.